Staying with the campaign funding theme, some public employee union leaders in Wisconsin are saying they will be active this year, but they may end up relying more on out-of-state national unions. And that's because it's become clear that unions in Wisconsin are not the political force they were 4 years ago. Fox 11 investigates, examining the changing role of unions in politics. Here's Robert Hornacek.
The elections are months away, but the campaigns are well underway. Behind the candidates, special interest groups are lining up to try to influence your vote. But one particular group isn't nearly as powerful as it's been in the past, thanks in large part to Act 10, the controversial law passed by Republicans in 2011 that put strict limits on collective bargaining for most public employees.
We saw a significant drop-off in membership.
Marty Beal is the head of the Wisconsin State Employees Union. He says Act 10 had a drastic impact on public unions across the state. Those unions have typically supported Democrats. So just how much did Act 10 impact public employee unions? Well, just take the Wisconsin State Employees Union, for example. Before Act 10, there were 20,000 state employees that were members. Now, there are fewer than 10,000. That had a huge impact on the union's budget. It went from $5.5 million before Act 10 down to $2.5 million a year.
Will that translate into a significant drop in political activity?
I think what it'll translate into is that we will do our political activity a little differently than we did in the past.
Beal says rather than donating to individual candidates and campaigns, the unions will put more energy behind the scenes in things like get out the vote efforts.
You will see AFSCME and some of the other unions' political arm in a much more aggressive on-the-ground campaign than we ever have had before.
Mark Grahl is a Republican strategist.
What do you expect to see from the state and local public employee unions this fall?
I think they'll still be very active. I think maybe they have their members are not funding their political activities at the same rate that they used to, but that doesn't mean they're not going to be very politically active.
But it won't be anything like years past.
There's an imbalance that's been created.
Mike McCabe is with the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, a group which tracks political spending. He says Act 10 has put Democrats at a disadvantage when it comes to raising money.
Now, it's not a good thing to have one side have a distinct advantage when it comes to money. And it's not a good thing for one kind of interest to be able to blow other interests out of the water when it comes to monies.
That may be true on the state level, but Wisconsin's big elections bring in big money from all kinds of national groups, including public employee unions. In fact, according to the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, spending from outside groups was pretty even during the recent recall elections. Republican-leaning groups spent nearly $40 million, while groups backing Democrats, including unions, spent nearly $36 million. National unions are promising to spend big in Wisconsin again this year.
To what extent are you expecting the national unions to get involved in the races in the fall?
I think there'll be several of the larger international unions will be involved. They'll support their affiliates here. Wisconsin became the battleground 2 years ago, and those national unions haven't forgot that.
AFSCME's national office and the AFL-CIO both refused to make someone available for an interview for our story, but in an interview with the New York Times, AFSCME President Lee Saunders, who also sits on the political committee of the AFL-CIO, said, quote, "We're going to support the workers and our allies who stood up to Scott Walker, and we'll be moving into the state to try to defeat him." McCabe says he's not convinced that will happen.
So maybe national unions will jump in, maybe they'll try to flood this state with a lot of money. They're certainly making a lot of noise about wanting to do that. The real question is whether they have the capacity to counter some of the big money interests that come in on the other side.
Do you expect to see a major presence from the national unions in the fall elections here?
They're not going to spend money just because they don't like Scott Walker or Act 10. They're going to spend money because they think they can win. But I think predictions on what's going to be happening in September and October, making predictions like that in March are kind of silly at this point.
Why do you think they're saying it now then?
Oh, because
is it all just posturing? Is it just posturing?
Sure. Politics is often posturing, right? So it's they're going to say they're going to, you know, target Scott Walker to try to buoy Mary Burke's chances, and, you know, we'll see what that actually translates into.
We should find out by September, when the campaigns are in full swing. For Fox 11 Investigates, I'm Robert Hornacek.
Now, before Wisconsin's Act 10 became law, there were 20 unions certified to represent state workers. Today, there are just 8. For a full list of the state unions and to see how many workers they represent, that's available on our website, fox11online.com. Just click on the Fox 11 Investigates section.